Does your favourite football stadium need to be redeveloped?
The odds are the answer is either yes or it's already happened.
In fact, if you're a match-going supporter of a current Premier League team, there's a high chance that the ground you watch games in now is in some way different to what it was at the turn of the century. Although you might think it's just because of wear and tear, the burden of time, or the fact that it rains 200 days a year in Manchester, there's actually a far more significant reason as to why so many clubs are looking at making changes. In this video, we're looking at why so many iconic grounds are being ripped up or modified, how it's impacting supporters, and assess whether football is still at the heart of it all. It's really started to rain now. Before we look at stakeholders, governing bodies, and finances, we need to talk about what makes football stadiums special to fans. Traditionally, in the UK at least, it's been about having a place that feels like it represents a community.
While stadiums in America have often been built on the outskirts of cities, English grounds have stayed tied to the city, town, or borough they represent as much as possible.
When you walk out of a football ground in England, there's a good chance you'll find yourself amongst the place it represents, not a giant parking lot. You can learn a lot about a team by just looking at the surroundings of their stadium.
For a long time, this is how it was. Small stadiums in the heart of communities, built with a simple design, often without many seats. And while these had their day, a lot of them weren't built to last.
The 1990s saw the end of giant, unorganised terraces and the standardisation of all-seater stadiums. That's largely a result of the findings in the Taylor Report, made in response to the Hillsborough disaster, where police failures and stadium design faults caused the death of 97 Liverpool fans at an FA Cup semi-final. As a result of the report, lateral fencing was removed from grounds, and while it was deemed that standing in stadiums wasn't inherently dangerous, it led to policy ensuring that all stadiums in England's top two divisions converted to all-seater. Now, this did change the match-going experience massively, but at the heart of it was making sure that going to football was safe and accessible, and that fans were at the forefront. But that was over 30 years ago, and the next wave of change is happening right now, and whether fans are still at the forefront is complicated. It seems that all of Europe's biggest clubs are now exploring their options when it comes to stadia, and there's good reason for it. Big clubs in Europe have three primary income streams: commercial, including retail sales and sponsorship, broadcasting, and matchday revenue. Of these streams, it's commercial and broadcasting that have traditionally made up the bulk of clubs' revenue. For Manchester City, those two streams made up 90% of their income in 22-23. But change in regulation is changing the way clubs are approaching this.
As of the start of next season, new UEFA rules stipulate that clubs will only be able to spend 70% of their total revenue on wages, transfers, and agent fees.
Therefore, increasing matchday revenue is now essential for providing the framework within which clubs can build squads capable of winning silverware. And we're already starting to see how this is playing out. Real Madrid are possibly the best example, with their new stadium and the countless events that have come with it, contributing to the Spanish club becoming the first to report over €1 billion in revenue in a financial year. In 2019, Tottenham's new stadium opened, and in the time since then, they've watched matchday income triple and become London's biggest club when it comes to revenue. Becoming the home of NFL in London, countless concerts, a skywalk, and F1 Drive go-karting have only helped that cause. Now, earlier in this video, we talked about changes that considered fans at the forefront. And I guess the question is, are fans still at the forefront? In terms of the range of experiences and different ways of experiencing football, maybe you could argue yes. But for a majority of football fans, this really is a different era. And while many clubs do need to look at ripping old roofs out and putting new seats in, all clubs are now having to think about increasing their matchday revenue. Whether it be renovating, like Liverpool's new Anfield Road stand, where 1 in 4 seats added have been reserved for hospitality, creating more entertainment outlets within the ground, as Manchester City are planning, And then you've got the clubs searching for a new ground, like AC and Inter Milan, who are no longer interested in playing at the council-owned San Siro when rivals are playing at privately owned grounds and thus claiming more for their matchday income. But what does it mean for your average English clubs? Well, if we look at the Premier League and EFL, the same logic is going to apply. Teams will be looking to add matchday and commercial revenue streams in order to make it easier to comply with financial regulation. Look at Everton as just one example of a team set to move away from the ground they've played at for generations for a brand new stadium that will see their matchday revenue increase by over £40 million a year. Given they were recently docked points for being 20 million over the limit allowed for losses, this extra income is significant. Fulham have revealed ambitious new plans to include a rooftop pool at Craven Cottage, but even before that, they'd come under fire for charging up to £160 for a ticket against Manchester United. And now we're seeing a rise in ticket prices across the board. It's hard to say exactly how things are going to transpire, but I don't think this is a trend we've seen the back of. The Premier League are looking at reviewing their own regulations, but in the meantime, for those clubs looking for on-field success, matchday revenue is a priority, whether we like it or not.